And here's the thing about the internet, or just in general. That's the one thing. That's my biggest takeaway from all of this. Nobody can ever just be happy with what's going on. I think I mentioned this yesterday, and I'm reiterating this point, is we keep, like, no matter what happened, whether Justin Fields was good or bad, whether the Bears were good or bad, if the Bears are good, then it's preseason. None of that matters. If the Bears struggle, like, oh, grave concerns over the Chicago Bears. And I'm not going to sit here and apologize for the Bears being good on Saturday. It's just not what I'm going to do. Now, I will take a lot of it with a grain of salt or anything like that, but still, at the same time, you would have been crucifying Justin Fields or any one of these players had they not performed well in a preseason game. It's just the truth of it. And I think it's just the nature of social media and the way people just want to conduct themselves. They just always want to be drawn to the negative. They want to, something's always, you got to have something. You just can't enjoy it. I even mentioned this a couple of days ago. I think it was a Jahmyr Gibbs play from practice. I'm like, that's pretty good. That looks scary. He looks, it's a linebacker. I'm like, you know what? You can actually compliment an opposing player, an opposing team, and it's not going to hurt you. It's okay. The teams that you're playing against can at some point make good plays. It's going to happen, and your life would probably be a little bit better if you could just embrace that and move on. And you know what else will make your life better? Starting the show. So, Sammy, let's get started.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
Trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It's Tuesday night. You know what that means. It is time for Take It to the Rank. Happy that you are all joining us here today, but a little bit of housekeeping. This is a pre-recorded show. And unfortunately, that means that we won't be able to pull in questions from the audience, which I love doing. I love hearing from the fans. Still, make sure that you're asking questions in the chat, in the comments. I will be there answering questions as the show is playing out. So maybe a little bit different. We've done this before, where we pre-recorded one of these things and I've been able to go in and interact with the chat as it's going on. And typically I can't do that during the show because I'm hosting it. So should be a little bit of fun. We should have a good time. A lot to talk about. Very excited. Still buzzing from what happened on Saturday. This week has just been so much better. Now, if you know anything about me, you know I'm an Angels fan. I hate that part of my sports life. Love what's going on with my football teams, including Arsenal, who opened their season. The Premier League with a win over Nottingham Forest. So it was a good Saturday for me all the way. As long as I ignored what happened with the Angels, it was a good Saturday all the way around. I want to tell everybody that we do have a guest who will be joining us in just a little bit. Former bricklayer turned full-time Bears reporter Greg Braggs Jr. from CHGO is going to be here. We're excited to have him. We talked about him last week. We mentioned, I like to shout out those who've been going to training camp on the regular and the great work that everybody's been doing. And this goes for everybody who's been out at Bears camp, all the reporters, from Stacey Dales all the way on down. We appreciate everybody being the eyes and ears, not just for me, but for Bears fans everywhere, as you get an opportunity to kind of see what's going on in the world of sports. So we're excited to have Greg on with us here in a little bit. We'll get his impressions of what he saw, not only on Saturday, what he has seen in training camp so far, and get a little preview. He's going to be going out to Indianapolis this week, a couple of joint practices with the Indianapolis Colts, and then a game Saturday night. Same deal as what we did on Saturday. Right after the game, we'll be joining our friends with the Indianapolis version of the Sick Podcast, get their impressions. They've been out at Colts camp as well. They've had an interview with Chris Ballard. They're interviewing players. They've been doing a great job. Great source of information. So I'm looking forward to getting their insight on everything that's going on, what happened this past week, what happened in that game. Hopefully the momentum for the Bears continues to go on. So before we get to Sunday, I wanted to bring this up too, is our friend Ill Will, who we need to get back on the show. We were tweeting out the other day, talking about Jordan Love. And this goes back to what I was talking about, like nobody can ever be happy. And everybody's nitpicking everything. No matter what happens good in this world, everybody's got to nitpick it. I remember reading a post from a Commanders blogger or beat writer or somebody like that. And he's like, hey, you know what? Like, oh yeah, Sam Howell on point, dropping dimes, as accurate as hell, moving the ball up and down the field. And you're like, if you saw the pass to Johan Dotson for the touchdown, like he had to make an acrobatic catch. You know, he's just like, but who cares? Like it's, again, like the touchdown counted, okay? Jordan Love threw a ball that might have been picked off at some other point. It's okay. It still happened. It was a nice throw. It was a nice catch. Romeo Doubs looks like a really good player. Like, it's fine. These things can happen. It's not going to be the end of the world if these guys can go out. Let that go on. Don't worry about things like that. In any event, it's funny though, because, you know, Ill Will was talking about Jordan Love, and what he wants out of Jordan Love is that we want Jordan Love to be good enough to make the Packers okay, but not good enough so that they're a threat. And we got to find that sweet spot, because if he's just good enough, they're not going to be inclined to trade up for Caleb Williams. And if he's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, you want to hit that middle of the field. And so I respond, I'm like, yeah, we want him to hit that Kirk Cousins level, who I think is aptly described as a quarterback who's like, he's good, he's a good player, but he's not winning the Super Bowl for the Vikings. Like, he's just not, and that people know this. And well, not everybody knows this, because some Vikings fan got into his feelings like, he's better than any Bears quarterback. I'm like, that's not even the point. But no. I go, first of all, Jay Cutler and Jim McMahon exist in this universe. So he would not be the best quarterback in Bears history. The most passing yards? Sure, that doesn't make him the best. Especially with the way, like, again, trying to explain nuance to a Vikings fan is not something that you want to do. Like, they're not going to get it. You know, like, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to explain to my 5-year-old why, even though Arsenal won, we should be upset that, you know, like, we shouldn't be giving up goals. Like, the defense needs to play. And he doesn't care. He's like, oh, we won though. And you're like, yeah, but what they should have won a little bit, but you know, and that's what it's like talking to a Vikings fan, is they're like, well, I mean, yeah, Kirk Cousins has a lot. Kirk Cousins has thrown for a lot of yards in his career. As a matter of fact, if Kirk Cousins has the typical career year that he's had throughout his, you know, entirety in the NFL, he is going to pass Joe Montana on the all-time passing list for yardage. I don't think that Kirk Cousins is better than Joe Montana. I apologize to the Vikings fans who are upset right now, who feel that Kirk Cousins at the end of this season will now be better than Joe Montana. That's not the way things work. And so trying to get that across to people, like, no, Kirk Cousins is the perfect example of mid-card jobber who's never quite going to be, you know, the main event guy. He might even be, like, I'll even say this, and I love Sami Zayn. So don't take this the wrong way. So I'm a big Sami Zayn fan. Like, I love him. But I understand, like, his program with Roman Reigns, excellent. But he's not Roman Reigns. He's not going to carry the belt. He's not going to be the face of the company. That's Kirk Cousins. He's fine. He can win the NFC North periodically. He's a good person. He seems like a nice guy. But he's not going to be the face of the NFL. He's not going to be carrying one of these teams. It's okay, and that's fine. But that's exactly my point. Like, the guy's arguing, I'm like, you're exactly proving my point. He throws for a lot of yards. You can't get rid of him because he's good enough. He's too good to get rid of. And that is the problem. And so it is just one of those things that is very difficult. It's very difficult for Vikings fans to comprehend. And so it was a fun little back and forth. At some point, you're like, okay, sir, we're closing the bar. We need you to go. And actually, it was right before the game started. And I'm like, okay, like, whatever. Just please go. I've had enough out of you. Because let's talk about Saturday. Saturdays, it's always confusing. It's a Saturday game. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about what happened on Saturday. Great game. Very pleased with everything that was going on. I will say this. And this is important to point out. Number one, I'm not a Penn State fan. One of my dear friends who was staying at the house left this Penn State. It's super nice. And again, it's too nice to get rid of, but I don't want it. I don't want to represent Penn State, but still. So we started that game. So the defense, the first team defense, looked atrocious. Could not get off the field. Malik Willis, who admittingly looked very good, moved the ball down the field. I will say, I think that Kyler Gordon, that hit, when they were challenging the plays, I felt like they should have challenged that hit. Because I think there was more of a, like, he's starting to lose it. He's going to the ground. And sometimes, I know it's not Al Riveron anymore, but depending on which way the NFL official is feeling that day, who's on his fantasy team, was the ball moving? That to me was closer to being overturned than the play that they actually overturned. But I do like that Matt Eberflus at one point did throw a challenge flag. Who cares? I say this because it's preseason, like who cares? But I do like the fact that it lets the players know that you've got their back. So I get it. Like, I'm like, dude, really? Like, preseason game? Like, why are we throwing the challenge flag? But at the same time, I do applaud Matt Eberflus just because you let the players know I'm here, I'm invested. It's kind of like hanging out with your kids. You know, sometimes you got to put the phone down, let them know that you're invested, you're watching them play, or you're doing whatever, you're invested in them. So the first team defense was a little bit of a struggle. And so I didn't like that at all. I thought Kyler Gordon, though, made a couple of nice plays, a couple of nice hits. Obviously, the one that they had to challenge on, there was a busted coverage. That's unfortunate. I mean, busted coverages happen. You know what? We don't want that to be something that happens all the time. But the first play, we'll figure it out. I need them to get off. They cannot allow those first score drives, though. They got to be better on third down. They got to try to hold these teams to field goals. That was impressive. I mean, I understand, like, hey, well, not everybody was there. Yeah, neither was DeAndre Hopkins. So let's call it a draw of, like, we didn't have everybody out there. That goes for both sides. You need them to get off the field. That's a valuable concern. Listen, I don't think that there's anybody more positive about the Chicago Bears than me, or any sport, supporting any of his teams. But even I can point out, like, we need to stop doing that. I even tweeted it. It felt weird tweeting like that was not ideal. What was ideal is what happened the next series. Is we saw some running. Khalil Herbert ran a little bit. We threw a swing pass to Kari Blasingame, our friend. We got to get him back on the show. Sammy, make a note of that. Let's see if we can get Kari back on. Oh, we got to talk to him. And then, the excitement happened. The slip screen to DJ Moore that he takes to the house. What a play. I will remember where I was for eternity, where I was on that play, just watching it. And did Braxton Jones perhaps nudge somebody in the back? Maybe. Do I care? Absolutely not. I don't care. You weren't going to make the play anyways, Titans player. It doesn't matter. We're we're working things out. And if that was a real football game, it obviously would have counted. There was holding on the Titans touchdown as well. Oh, that's right. There was holding on the Titans touchdown. I think I kind of glossed over that because I had Jarrett with Talking Titans on Saturday, and I didn't want to get into it too much. That was an obvious hold. That was more of a hold than a push in the back because I'm biased. But at the same time, like, there was a hold, yeah. So we would have held them, okay. But still. But again, this goes to the point of, like, you got to go with the call. Like, you're not going to get every call. So you got to play, like, whether you're stopping a team or you're not. And so it was exciting. DJ Moore, like, you could not have asked. Like, that's impressive. Like, for some, you ever, like, I don't know. I was in a golf tournament one time, and I brought my friend Cole with me. And my friends did not know him. And, it was Patrick. Oh, sorry, it was Patrick Claybon. Cole was a different tournament. I brought Patrick Claybon to this tournament. And my friends were excited because they love Patrick and they think he's a great guy and they see him on the NFL Network and they're like, oh my God, like Patrick, like this is pretty cool. They were stoked that they were going to meet Patrick Claybon just as a human being. And I'm like, no, but he smokes the ball off. He's a good golfer and he smokes the ball off the tee. And, you never know. And then the first tee, of the game, or the first tee, he just hits a bomb that explodes. Like, I'm okay. I hit these balls that go between 200 and 225 yards. Maybe once in a while I'll get it to 230. Not a lot. It's just like Patrick hits it like 270. It's crazy. Like, he just smokes the ball. But it's cool that when you're talking somebody up like that, they come out and perform. And I think that we've all been of the mind that DJ Moore is going to make a transformation with this Bears offense that is going to, permeate through the entire team. And then immediately he goes out and does just that. It was incredible to see. And so it was exciting. But for me, perhaps the most important part was what happened when the defense came. Because obviously now Soldier Field is rocking. That place is energized. The defense looks better. And admittingly, they switched. They brought in Will Levis, to be their quarterback. But the defense was getting busy. You know what? That first team offensive line was pushing the Bears around. And then, that second team when we get out there for that second series, it was night and day. They're getting after the quarterback. And of course, they get a crucial third down, which is exactly what we need. And we get a third down. Zach Pickens comes up, makes a huge sack. Everybody's just fired up. And that, to me, I'm not going to say it was more important than what Justin Fields and the offense was doing, but that is the kind of stuff we need to see. If we give up a first drive touchdown, you want to be able to answer. The Bears did exactly that. When you make a huge touchdown and you stop a team or you score a big touchdown, it is so important to go out there defensively and make a huge stop. And that's exactly what the Bears did. And that is the kind of sequences that we need. The huge touchdown, make a stop, get the ball back immediately. And then what happens? Khalil Herbert goes to the house. It was unbelievable. It was so amazing. And again, there was, people on the internet can be like, well, he was behind here. You know what? He got him the ball. I don't care what it looks like. Get him the football. 2 catches were made. They were taken to the house. And again, not apologizing for that. There is no need to apologize for that. People are like, well, we didn't get any answers. You didn't? You did. The question that should have been asked, that was the most important thing to be asked this whole time. Have the Bears surrounded Justin Fields with enough talent? I don't know. I got kind of an answer there. That seemed to be answered with a yes. Did the Bears surround Justin Fields with enough talent? The answer is yes. I'm not taking that in a bad way, and I'm not going to apologize for that. And I think it's very important for you to realize, like, that was an answer right there. That really was. And by the way, before we're going to get to Greg here in just a matter of seconds, I do want to say this. Our friend Bill Zimmerman, we've done a number of his shows. He tweeted out after the game, talking about Justin Fields' performance. If we have that sampling, what we got to work with, it's a simple projection. Based on NFL teams averaging 33 passes per game, Justin Fields' stats, if he stays healthy, for all 17 games this year based on today's performance, his season stats would be 561 for 561 for 24,123 yards, 374 touchdowns, no picks, and 43 yards per attempt. That would be Justin Fields' statistics if he played based on what he did. Now, obviously, what Bill did here is preposterous, and it's nonsense because the Bears probably wouldn't be playing 17 games because they would have locked up the division and probably number 1 in home field advantage. So he would be playing 16 games. So, Bill, be a little bit better. Can you put some realism in there? Like, he would not be playing 17 games because we would have locked it down. We'd had the number 1 seed. We're not attempting 33 passes. And then be better, Bill. But I will say this, what a great fantasy performance. What a great fantasy season that would be. And speaking of fantasy, the easiest way to play fantasy football is with Underdog Fantasy. Yeah, it's so simple. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com, or better yet, download the app Underdog Fantasy, and you can get started in the greatest way to play fantasy football. It's so simple. It's so easy. And it's a great app to have on your phone. Whenever you have big plays, like, when DJ Moore scored that touchdown, I get an alert. I got an alert for Khalil Herbert. A lot of great things are going on. So it's a great app. It's a great way to get started. And right now, if you're a first-time user and you sign up using the promo code SICK, Underdog Fantasy will match your initial deposit up to $100. So that's a great way to get started. And the best part, I'm going to be competing with you in an Underdog Fantasy League this season, maybe multiple ones. We're going to give you details on that here in the coming weeks. But yeah, we're going to do a couple of best ball leagues to get everybody involved in fantasy. That way we can have some fun, talk some S on each other, and just have an enjoyable time. Underdog Fantasy is the way to go. Go to underdogfantasy.com right now. Download the app. Do all that stuff. Now that we have the housekeeping out of the way, I am very excited for this. As you know, I am active in Bears Twitter, and one of my favorite follows is a man who, I believe it was last season, he was a bricklayer by profession, and then he decided that he was going to follow his passion. He was going to do what his heart compelled him to do, and that was to devote himself to covering the Bears full time. And what a job he has been doing. He has been my go-to this offseason. Him, Lester, all those guys, everybody who's out there. Like, I really do appreciate it. And we appreciate him coming onto the show. So let's please welcome Greg Braggs Jr., who is going to be joining us here. It's a busy day for him. Again, this is pre-recorded. He had a stacked day of interviews. He's a man about town. Everybody wants to talk to him. And we're pleased to have you here for a little bit. Greg, how are you?
I'm great. Especially after yesterday watching DJ Moore take it to the house. I know Justin's relieved to see that, but I know us as Bears fans, it's a breath of fresh air. And, now the hypotheticals and everything, the offseason talk that can drive a man insane. Now we actually have a game on tape. I watched it again this morning, and we have some substance finally to have in our hands.
Let me ask you real quick. Did Braxton push in the back? Was that a slight nudge?
I didn't
we didn't see
nothing.
that.
And you know what? When I tweeted yesterday about whether or not on the Khalil Herbert screen if there was guys illegally downfield, and look, Justin Fields asked the same question. He thought maybe there could be a flag in the postgame presser, but I got a lot of heat from fans about, I should understand the rule book because this is my job and things of that nature. It's like, look, I have a lot of respect for the refs after that play because the amount of conversation from my question of whether or not that was a legal man downfield to a legal man downfield, it's now spent 24 hours of people deciding whether it is or isn't, and I still don't know. So I have a little more respect, a newfound respect for the refs that we're always throwing arrows at because that job certainly isn't easy, and I certainly am never trying to act like I'm an expert on this, just another fan in the stands. That's what I've always been, and I appreciate what you say, and yeah, as a someone that's been a bricklayer for 20 years and I gave it up about a month ago to go full time.
Was that a month ago? Okay.
Yeah. I started with CHGO Bears and CHGO Sports last year, but it was part time. And this last off season, I started to get a little antsy. I was like, you know what, I want to go for this now, and I gave it up. Gave up the bricks. Now we're on to sports media dreams, and I'm having a lot of fun. So I appreciate your support. I know you gave me a shout out the other day on your show. It's not easy because maybe trying to maneuver through this media game now as a fan and want to do it in a different way than other guys do it. Traditional media, legacy media does it. It's an odd road to maneuver through. And you're honestly kind of the gold standard when it comes to this because you're on NFL Network, a national platform, but you've always stayed true to who you are. And we've got this running gag on Twitter about Meatball Island, and I'm mayor of Dan Wiederer called me mayor of Meatball Island. And you know what, Dan, I wear that badge proudly. I am a meatball, and we look up to us meatballs. If I'm the mayor, Adam, I think we want to anoint you as the president of Meatball Island. Everybody's kind of carving out their roles. We got a border patrol on Meatball Island now. We got all these people that are trying to get their roles, but we certainly look up and follow your lead as far as staying true to the passion, but also trying to be honest in the media game.
I want to be the aloof guy who lives on the golf course on Meatball Island. You're like, oh, that's Rank's house on a hole number 4. We see, he'll hang out with you at the coffee shop. Like, it's no big deal. But the one thing that I really appreciate, and I never really, I don't know. I'm blocked by this person on Twitter. I'm sure it's my fault. But Bill Simmons, was one of the guys who made it kind of cool to be able to say, like, hey, I rooted for a team growing up. Like, why do we always have to ignore this? Like, why? Because you always accuse everybody of being biased. Like Joe Buck hates my team. This guy does. And all this stuff is like, well, you were a human being growing up. So why not do it? And it's also, you know, it's also nice just to be like, I'd rather be upfront about it than have people question it. So they know. And I think that of all the fan bases, I think the Packers fans get it the most and are the coolest with it. Like, yeah, okay, like that ranks talking ass or doing whatever, which is really nice. And it's really what I love about your approach. And one of the things, you know, as you're doing this, it's funny because you said, I thought you'd given it up a little bit more. You were on the brick patch. You'd been weaning yourself off, and now you finally went cold turkey a month. Okay, now I got the timeline correct. But it's been great, you know. And you know, one of the things I think that, you know, whenever you want to follow the Bears or people who cover the Bears, it's like, who do I like? Like who would I see myself hanging out with? Right. And you've always been one of those guys. I'm like, oh yeah, Greg's cool. Like I love it.
And that's the thing. We can all have a different way we go at it.
Oh yeah.
I understand they're legacy media, traditional people. They're going to come at it from a professional standpoint more so than if you don't want to say I'm professional at it. I would tend to disagree. But if in the lens of journalistic integrity, as Dan Wieder said, that I'm kind of wrecking that with what I'm doing, I would vehemently disagree with that. I'm not trying to be Dan Wieder. And he's a great dude. He works hard. He crosses his T's, dots his I's. He's very, detailed in his approach. But I think when you have 25 beat writers and they're all somewhat writing the same story and they're covering the game, there's another aspect of sports. And we saw this when COVID hit and there were no fans in the stands. And that's who I am. Yeah. I'm the fan in the stands. And that's the other half of the sports equation. And I'm a fan, and I'm always going to be that guy. I don't really want to I'm not going to try to become, you know, the Sun-Times or the Tribune guy. I want to stay true to who I am. That's what got me here. And I just feel like in a competitive industry, and I want the respect of everyone I work around. But at the same time, I'm not trying to be those guys. I'm going to try to be me. And I think there's a space for all of us here because every fan wants something different. There's a lot of fans that don't want to listen to the meatball. They don't want to hear
and that's fine.
That's fine. But as long as I'm going to stay true to myself, stay authentic, and you can do your thing, and I'm going to have respect for you. And that's kind of where I go with it.
And that's the way that we want to do it. I know the beat writer, the Angels beat writer for The Athletic, like literally hates the team and is so negative. And it's like, but some people are drawn to that. Like there's people who defend him like, no, we love this guy. We love his real talk. It's like, that's fine. It's not my thing. It's like watching a comedy show, you know, like there's a lineup, there's 10 guys up there. You might like David Spade. I like David Spade, but somebody else might not like David Spade. I'm sorry for you that you're missing out on this great show, but it's the way that it is. And it's the same thing. And I forget who I was talking to, and it might've been Tom Grossi because he's a comic too. Yep. And it's like, yeah, like comics are so competitive, but you don't realize like if everybody's good, that makes everybody better. Yep. Like I did my friend's special, Johnny LaQuasto. Go find this. Go find Johnny LaQuasto's special. But I was one of the openers. All three of the openers, we all killed it. And then Johnny went up and did his thing. I'm like, if one of us bombed, I wouldn't laugh. I wouldn't laugh at Ryan Niemiller and be like, I'm glad you bombed. So like everybody's better. The rising tide rises all boats.
Got it.
And I think it goes with media, it goes with comedy, and it goes with football teams. And it feels like, and if I'm not mistaken, DJ Moore could be that guy who rises all tides. Because I don't know what part of the show you came in on, but I said what DJ Moore did offensively was very impressive. But I felt, and I'm curious to get your opinion on this. I felt that lifted the defense. And when the defense went on the field after his touchdown, they looked completely different. Zach Pickens gets a sack. We got off the field after a huge touchdown. I think that was probably the most important element of the game on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I mean, like I said, it was a breath of fresh air after what we had to go through as Bears fans and what the team had to go through last year, watching Justin Fields have to carry this whole thing and the players that have carried over from last year to this year, because it has been a roster that certainly has been turned over. But there has to be some amount of guilt they had as they went through last year, knowing that this dude's carrying us. We're not holding up our end of the bargain. Now you get this superstar in DJ Moore. That's a contagious thing. And not just for the wide receiver room or the offense, but like you said, the defense as well, because the energy lifts up. Again, the fans in the stands, when that happens, it electrifies the crowd, which then that gets right into the players' core. And that's something that you can't find on a stat sheet, but it's certainly tangible.
Yeah, you know what? And it's the funniest thing too when people talk about that and they talk about like we didn't get any answers on offense. I'm like, our answer was is DJ Moore can play football. That's all we needed to know, and it's a tangible thing. Whether it's again throwing out the funny projections.
That says that I just think is being short-sighted. There was they ran right before one of the screen passes. They ran a toss right to Khalil Herbert where they pulled Cole Kmet and Darnell Wright out.
Yeah,
and Darnell Wright put on display what he can do for this football team. He's got good feet, comes around, turns his hips, seals the whole side. And his big body, he's blocking one dude, and then another guy's coming through. He blocks him just because of his sheer size. We didn't have that on the right side last year. And you've got one side, protection on the edge like that. Braxton Jones getting down on one of the blocks. Because that's the thing. You can just look at the 60-yard touchdowns and look at DJ Moore and Khalil Herbert, but look at the blocking. Braxton Jones and Darnell Mooney sealing it, opening up the hole. Tevin Jenkins getting to the second level. On the screen pass, those offensive linemen are all the way to the 10-yard line when Khalil Herbert is crossing the goal line. That's a hits philosophy. That's what Matt Eberflus is trying to instill on this team, and you're seeing that energy across the board. Jatiri Carter, he's had a rough camp. I feel like the whole offensive line has had a rough camp, especially in the last week. They showed up yesterday. They
played really good
game. So we did get some answers beyond just the Justin Fields and DJ Moore of what's going to happen with this offense.
Yeah, I kind of slugged out. Not sure when you were going to be able to join us. Some of the stock up, stock down. I have offensive line as one of the stock ups for all those reasons that you said. The one thing, and two, in the Darnell Wright play that you're talking about, he blocks that little guy. I'm sorry that I forgot his name.
No, little guy's fine.
Little guy, but
everybody's gonna be a little guy for Darnell.
But I know like the visual of it is funny, but I'm like, that's the one thing that's actually the most difficult for a big guy like that, because those little squirts, can get around you.
Yeah.
And that's why you want, like, sometimes when you have these big athletic guys, like, it's tough for them. You see this all the time, like these big athletic guys who will miss, this little gnat of a player who's just coming in like, you know what? And it's frustrating. And I know even playing like any level of football, that those little guys that just worm their way in, like it's annoying, but he was able to spring him for a pretty good game. So I thought the offensive line, their stock is going up. Khalil Herbert, I know that you don't want to just give somebody a job right off the bat, but for me, I feel like his stock is up. In this early going after 1 week, it looks like he obviously got the start. You've been at practice. Does it feel like the stock for Khalil Herbert's been going up?
I mean, I think he's safe to this point. He'll be the starting running back for, the early portion of the season. It's going to be a running back by committee, but what we've learned at camp from the running game is very little. They don't hit at camp. Nobody's getting full out tackled, maybe, but the exception of a few times. They did run one goal line red zone drill for like 6-7 plays where it got somewhat physical. They tried some different running backs out there. I think the more interesting question is who's the starting running back come December? You're going to have injuries as a variable, momentum, who's the hot hand, who's giving you more in pass protection, which is an important key to the running back position. And I heard Tom Thayer say that Roschon Johnson's one of the greatest blocking running backs he's ever seen coming out of college. I have a lot of respect for Tom Thayer's football opinion, and he's not the type to blow smoke like maybe a meatball like me would. So I take a lot of stock in that, because for me at camp, to evaluate the pass rush in the trenches when they're not going full go, it's a tempo pass rush, as Jason McKee was explaining to me earlier, former Chicago Bear. It's like, it's not the way camp used to be 20 years ago, where you could really tell if this team was going to like put a hat on a head and run the football with authority. I feel confident they will, because they showed that last year. And the guys they have in here, I think, have a resume with Herbert and Deontay Foreman. Roschon Johnson, certainly an interesting variable there when you hear about his pass blocking ability. And I thought he showed something in the second half of the game yesterday, with it, doing different things beyond just pass blocking. So, but for the now, Khalil Herbert's going to have that job week 1. He's a great cutback runner. He led the NFL in yards per carry last year, around 6 yards per carry. So he's going to be getting the rock to start the year. There's no question about it. It's his job to lose.
I love it. I would advise anybody in the fantasy football space that you're going to draft Khalil Herbert, and if you do, you've got to make sure that you have Roshan Johnson on your roster for those November and December months, and then when Deontay Foreman scores a touchdown, you'll eat glass. But that's fine. That's the way fantasy football works, and everything's going to be frustrating, and it's never a good time. And I don't know why any of it. No, keep playing. That's how I get paid. Like, keep playing. Yeah, keep playing. I also like Travis Gibson. Holy mackerel. Let's talk about the defense for a second because, good Lord, I don't care if it's preseason. This was a problem. To get 8 sacks, even in a preseason game, and Travis Gibson looking like a guy who saw himself third on the depth chart. I know my friend Patrick Claybon, who I talked about earlier, hates the word momentum and doesn't believe in him and doesn't believe in motivation. But I'm like, I don't know. He looked like a different player. He looked like the guy we wanted him to be last year. Has this been something that we've seen all camp, or was this just a one-game thing? What was your impression of Travis Gibson?
No, I mean, he was starting to get passed up at camp, but that's only half the story in an evaluation process for the coaches as they go into the season and decide who's going to get cut and who isn't, or who's going to be the starters and who isn't. And so now Travis Gibson has a notch on his belt because he was one of the top standout players of everybody on either side of the ball for the Bears yesterday, showing that he's playing with a chip on his shoulder because of the message that the coaching staff has sent him. Now he's got heated competition. I mean, DeMarcus Walker is hurt right now, but early on in camp, he was definitely showing that he's going to not only be someone that flashes, but somebody that's a vocal leader on that defensive side of the ball. The first week of practice, he was one of the loudest guys on the practice field, but since then he's been hurt. So, he's still trying to show leadership. I watch him on the sidelines, staying engaged in the huddle, talking to the players on the sideline. So he's not just like flaking off because he's hurt. And so I'm still encouraged by DeMarcus Walker, but he's hurt. Terrell Lewis, another guy that had a lot of flash here yesterday, forced fumble, a sack, a couple quarterback hits. He's the guy that's really given Travis Gibson all he can handle, because I feel like Terrell Lewis out of Alabama has, played for the Rams, had some injury here.
That's some injury,
Yeah. I think he's making this team as long as he stays healthy. So how this all shakes out, I'm happy for Travis because I know him from camp. I've had some fun interaction with him. We've got a little bit of a paper, rock, scissors battle at training camp. He's up 2-1 on me right now, so I'm not happy about that. But he's a really good dude, so I'm rooting hard for him as a fan. But he's got to win because Terrell Lewis ain't going away. DeMarcus Walker has a job here. There's different, Rasheem Green. I don't really know how he fits with this team. But then you've got, Dominique Robinson. And now you bring in Yannick Ngakoue. That room starts to get filled up, and so it'll be interesting. But a step in the right direction yesterday for Travis Gibson.
Yeah, I loved him. Lewis was another guy that I had too, because I remember him from the Rams and thought, I know the Rams, talking to some of their people, they really liked him. And it was unfortunate that things didn't work out in Los Angeles for him because he can play. And I think that he's got the pedigree. And that's the kind of players that we need to start hitting on, is finding players like that, those diamonds in the rough who can come in. And now when it's a fun problem to have when you're talking about, like, we weren't getting any pass rush. We did have to make, and it's not a panic move, but we brought in Yannick Ngakoue. And now it's like, yeah, this is a good problem to have. Let's have too many guys as opposed to not enough, because and you mentioned this earlier too, like you will eventually run into injuries and other things, and it's going to be important to make sure that you're fortified and you have a bunch of players out there. And I guess this one will lead itself. Oh wait, I do want to talk about Kyler Gordon.
Man,
I don't know. Who was the blown coverage on the first play of the game? Was it Kyler? Who got caught inside?
We don't know, because then Tyreek Stevenson also got beat. Was that the same play on 30 yards? And until we see the all 22, it's really hard to say. You're talking about on the play action rollout and then Kyler was on the backside and he just comes out of nowhere.
He smokes a guy.
Yeah, smokes him. So until the all 22 comes out and our guy draft Dr. Phil breaks down the tape and can tell the simpleton meatball over here whose responsibility that was, it's hard to say whose, but we know damn well who was following the hits philosophy, and that was Kyler Gordon, who didn't give up on the play, comes on the backside and almost knocks that ball loose. It was,
I think he did. I want to see that again. I thought that one deserved a closer look than the other one that they challenged, but okay.
And I understand why they didn't challenge that. Like, if it was an actual game in the regular season,
Yeah.
Maybe you don't challenge that one, but the one in the red zone I can understand because they're in the red zone, right? So now we're talking about a chance to score. So maybe that was the decision there. But I agree with you. I thought it was a fumble too.
I loved it. I love that. Like, I just was writing down stuff, and I'm like, that play, like, that could be that. Regardless of what the play was, like, we saw with our eyes him make that play, whether he fumbled or not, whether the fraction of a second the ball came out or not, it doesn't matter. Kyler Gordon's hustling to the ball. He had multiple plays like that, and I really love to see it. I'm really so excited about him going into year 2. And you mentioned the All-22s and Draft Dr. Phil. Want to remind everybody that this show has been pre-recorded. If the All-22s have been out and like, what are you guys talking about? We're pre-recording this on a Tuesday. That's why it's so bright. And I'm actually, at a different location. I'm not in my typical studio. Hopefully, maybe I'll ask Draft Dr. Phil if I could go on Wednesday and break things down with him. But anyways, like, check all that stuff out. And again, like, I'm probably in the chat right now as you're watching this, so we'll be talking about it. So maybe we'll have some insight. And not that it matters because things happen early on, but I was just really impressed with Kyler Gordon. And it's one of those things that when everybody talks about, and I know that George Pickens, I think, had a touchdown this weekend, or he did something. And like, everybody will go back to that and be like, oh, we could have, it's fine. But remember, we got Kyler Gordon, who I think is going to be a tremendous player. We got Jaquan Brisker, who looked good as well. Like, we did okay. And I think that this is another stock up for me is the drafting prowess of Ryan Poles. Because not only, I mean, like, you talk about those two guys and Braxton Jones getting out. But I'm going to go through, like, okay, Darnell Wright looked good. Tyreek Stevenson looks like he is going to be the guy who starts opposite of Jalen Johnson. Zach Pickens had the big third down sack that got us the ball after the DJ Moore touchdown. Yep. Roshan Johnson looked really good. Noah Sewell, we thought he was going to get penalized for a late hit. No, he just made a good play. The penalty was mistakenly, like, there was no reason for a penalty to be on Tyreek Stevenson. Like, that was not a penalty. That's why, and again, the referees are in training camp too. I'm not even going to sweat it. And Travis Bell makes a big sack at the end of the game and erupts the sideline, which shows you, like, the players love him. Yep. Like, he's obviously a popular guy. I don't know. I don't want to, like, not every pick has been perfect, but oh man, the job that Ryan Poles has done over the last 2 years, draft-wise, it's starting to really show itself.
Well, and then you add in undrafted free agent last year, Jack Sanborn, and then this year, undrafted free agent who flashed the last week of practice and then flashed yesterday, Micah Baskerville out of LSU.
Oh, right.
Like, all of a sudden, this Baskerville guy, what a football name, like straight out of the Waterboy or something. Like, this is just a beautiful football name. Like, and so to your point, I agree. I think Ryan Poles' draft prowess is solid. I think his approach to the way he drafts, I mean, he showed it with the trade back and then to trade back one more time, one spot to add another pick. Those are little things that maybe the average fan may not appreciate. But, anybody that followed the way Ryan Pace handled things, who was much more, quick on the draw, maybe his poker face wasn't as good, would give up draft equity to move up, trade a 4th-round pick to get Nick Foles instead of just waiting for him to be cut. Ryan Poles, I think, is more calculated in his approach, and he's a little more calm and waits for the market to come to him, waits for the draft to fall to him. So I'm very encouraged by the way Ryan Poles drafts so far.
Yeah, I think that if Ryan Pace was, well, I don't even want to get into it because so many things would have changed. So many things would have changed. But I was thinking about this when they drafted Darnell Wright. And I know there was a big push, and they loved Paris Johnson Jr., who we saw over the weekend for the Arizona Cardinals. And I like him too. I'm like, it would have been such a Ryan Pace move to then trade down, but then trade back up to get Paris Johnson Jr., who could be a great player. But when you look at the value, like, it's one of those things, and it's always what I talk about when they make these trades. Like when they did when you make any deal, it's like you got to remember everything that comes along with it. So would you rather have Darnell Wright and the 4th-round pick that we got and all this other equity that we're going to be getting over the next number of years, or one Paris Johnson? It's like, and it's like the thing with Roquan Smith as well. It's like Roquan Smith is a great player. Right. And obviously he went to Baltimore and somehow became even better. I don't think so. I think he was doing the same thing he did with the Bears, but when you're wearing a Ravens uniform, people are just like, you know what, you're good. It's like if I played a guitar and I'm playing, like if Bono was doing a karaoke night, and you didn't know who he was, you'd be like, this guy blows. But when you're at the Sphere in Las Vegas and you're watching Bono sing One Tree Hill, you're like, this is the most amazing performance. Like, it's different.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is with
The
being
setting.
a Raven. When you're with the Ravens, they're like, oh, you're Bono now, apparently.
Yes.
Okay. But if you can get, like, would you rather have Roquan or Terrell Edmonds and TJ Edwards and a pick? So let's just say Zach Pickens.
Right.
I know that's not
Well,
the right
it ended
one.
up being
But like, what
Noah,
else?
it ended up being Noah Sewell.
Noah Sewell, excuse me. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Sorry. But like, that's the way it goes. And
Right.
I think that's a philosophy that's going to lead us into these situations where we were just talking about how we have too many guys. Like, we don't know who, like, a good player might be cut off the defensive line, which is incredible to think about from a year ago, where we're begging somebody to get to the quarterback. Like, now we might have too many guys. When somebody's going to have to take a seat,
Yep.
somebody might go on the practice squad. We don't know. Somebody could end up being cut. And so I think this is such a great problem to have, and it's something that I'm excited about.
You look at
with,
the depth. You look at the depth across the board. Like you said, good players are going to be cut. A wide receiver, Velus Jones, is in trouble now, and that's a third
All
round
right,
pick
let's
from last
do
year.
okay. Let's do a stock down. He's the stock downs for me are the haters who've been really going through their feelings over the last couple of days.
Sorry, Patrick.
And our friend, and listen, I love Velus Jones, and as of Sunday, I will eventually reach out to him. I tell him the key. I'm an encourager, and I think that he's got a lot of ability. But that was rough. You know, you can't. He's a special teams guy. You can't be making those plays. How much trouble is he in? Like, is it? I mean, could they cut their third round pick from a year ago?
I just think he's opened the door now for Dante Pettis, because even if he learns from that mistake in the next 2 games, he doesn't make that mistake. As a coach, can you trust him in the regular season? In a season where you now every week is vital and you're trying to win football games. It's always going to be in the back of your head. Now, he's willing to improve on this and prove it to the coaches that he can be trusted. But it was a very unfortunate moment for him, and he has now opened the door, because people are like, has he dropped a punt at practice? And I told fans, no, but you got to wait till the bullets start flying. And at the end of the day, you saw what happened. The ball bounces, and instead of yelling, poison or red or whatever, and tell everybody to get out of the way, not only that, but he's got to get out of the way. He makes a quick decision, and that's the thing about it. We talked about it on CHGO Bears yesterday. It's like, it just feels like it's happening too fast for him. And there's a lot you got to track the ball. You got to track how it's moving end over end. The wind, and then you're also, your peripheral vision. You got to feel those gunners coming at you. And there's a lot. It's not an easy job, but some people have the feel for it, like Devin Hester, who's obviously the extreme example.
The greatest of all time,
The greatest.
Way to go for the greatest of all time.
Yeah, well, he's my guy, so I'm always going to give Devin a shout. And then, you have Velus, who, is still trying to find that feel, and can he? You wish he could, because, Tyler Scott, they had him do catch a few punts, but he got a ball knocked out in the receiving game, and he's shown some hands issues at camp. So ball security is a problem for Tyler Scott too. They're not going to put DJ Moore back there. They better not, or I'll run on the field like a protective mother bear. They will not put him back there. So I think this has now opened the door for Dante Pettis, who's been on the non-active football, injury list, however you want to phrase it. So he hasn't been practicing, but now all of a sudden this happens. And I think it's opened the door. So I'm rooting for Velus just like any fan, but I'm worried for his job security, because as you mentioned with, a good DN getting cut, the wide receiver room starting to get crowded, and that's a credit to Ryan Poles, but it's going to become a numbers game at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that Tyler Scott is definitely going to make the team. The rookie out of Cincinnati. He's too fast. He's too good. He's got too much ability. But we love Velus, and it's just one of those things that I think that what happened, and if I'm guessing, like sometimes you know what you should be doing, but then you don't do it. You're like, okay, if you let the ball go, like you said, when I played at high school, like it was Peter was our get away, and it probably had some sort of overtones because our coach was a little, but anyway, but we would yell it, and then I think he wanted to make a play. Like, you're still in training camp and preseason and you want to make a play. Like, there's nothing wrong with, like, if you let it go, you let it go. And then if he would have ran to the sidelines after letting it go, coaches would have been like, catch that ball next time. You're like, okay. I think the one thing that I would advise anybody at any level, it's like, you know what? Nobody ever gets wrong if you just catch a punt and nothing happens. And you fair catch it and you catch it. Nobody's upset. Could you have made a bigger play or whatever? But as long as you have the ball, you're going to be fine. That's the ultimate thing. And I remember I briefly wasn't even an assistant coach, but I was on the sideline, and I was my friend's high school team, and this guy was struggling, and it was the kickoffs because this guy was pooch kicking off, and it just flummoxed these guys. And I walked up to him. I'm like, you know, you can fair catch it on a kickoff. Like they'll have to let you catch it. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. He did it on the next one, and the coach, as my friend, was like, oh my God, like he hugged him. He's like, great smarts. Way to think out there. And he came back and he looked at me and he's like, oh, I didn't I'm like, don't tell the coach I told you. Like, just enjoy your moment. You did the right thing. You take your victory where it is. So I think for Velus, though, he needs to improve. And I would tell him if he was here, if he was on the show, I'd be like, brother, we got it. I still have I think the one thing, though, is they're so intrigued by everything that he can do. And I kind of like
plays. He can make plays. And just make good decisions. That's first. Make good decisions, then make plays.
Yeah, and it's an experienced player who's played, 5 years of college football in the Pac-12, RIP, and the SEC. Like, you're ready. You're not coming out from Ball State. You're coming out from the SEC and USC. Like, you should have a better handle on it. And the stock down, though, I got to say, like, I feel bad for the haters. Like, they're working overtime to try to find things.
Oh man, really Packers Twitter is hot lately. It's crazy out there.
Before you came on, I made this, Ill Will and I were going back and forth with some clown the other day about, like, we want Jordan Love to be like mid, right? Like just a mid guy who's too good to cut, but not good enough to win. And I'm like, like Kirk Cousins. And the Vikings fans got very upset by this. I'm like, no, that's the exact, like, he is, like, you look up mid in the dictionary, and not in a bad way. I'm not saying he's not a nice person. I'm not saying he can't accumulate stats, but Kirk Cousins is the ideal of him and Jared Goff, the ideal of a rival quarterback of, like, all right, like, you're going to play for 12 years for that team, right, and you might win a division once in a while. You're not winning the Super Bowl. Am I off base? What's going on?
Well, I just think it's a standard of expectation. So for the Vikings, they look at Kirk Cousins and go, well, if you guys had Kirk Cousins, you'd be doing cartwheels in the street. Maybe some Bears fans would because they just need stability. But I had Cutler.
I had Jay Cutler. I've been down that road. It's fine.
We want more than stability. We're looking at Justin Fields and going, can you be the next superstar? You got your nice quarterback over there in Kirk Cousins. Nice guy. Show him on the quarterback show on Netflix. He looks like he's a great dude, and I hated how much I liked him on that show. But I do
like him as a person. Absolutely.
Okay, great dude. But we want a superstar over here. So when they showed, Kirk on quarterback, and then you see Patrick Mahomes and the animal that he is, and this just insanely competitive player. We come from Chicago, guys. Michael Jordan was bloodthirsty. And we want a quarterback like that, that's bloodthirsty. And Derrick Rose, the silent assassin. And I think, with Justin Fields, they have very similar traits, as far as their demeanor is concerned. We want greatness for Justin Fields. So it's just a bar of expectation. And I'm right there with you when it comes to Jordan Love. Don't be so bad that they can draft one of those top two quarterbacks in the draft last year. Be just good enough that you're above that, and maybe even more so be good enough to where the Packers re-sign you to a deal they'll regret 4 years down the road. I'm right there with you in a way.
Exactly. Like being Kirk Cousins. Like it was the most perfect, and it wasn't like a thing. It wasn't a knock on them and these guys. I don't know. I don't want to reiterate for everybody who's been watching the whole time, but it's like they pull out the numbers. Like, look at this. Like, look how many yards he's passed for. He'd be the Bears' all-time leading passer.
It's like, he's bar over here in Chicago.
First of all, that's true. That's true. That's like being like, we'd have the most Super Bowl wins in Minnesota history. Like, it's the low bar championships. They have one championship, one NFL championship. I always have to give them their credit. They did win an NFL championship. The Super Bowl that they went and lost to Kansas City counts as an NFL championship. We got 9. You've got 1. So shut up. Not you. with them.
Yes, of course.
What? But I want to ask you. You're going to be going out to Indianapolis this week. What do you got going on? Let us know how we can follow along and what you're going to be doing with. I'm assuming it's CHGO, but but we follow you on Twitter and all the social media handles. What do we got going on? What is the plan for this week?
Yeah, I'm with CHGO Sports, covering the Bears with CHGO Bears. Our crew is great. Adam Hogue, who's been covering this team for 20 years and as good as it gets for Bears coverage. I'll be with him and Mark Carman and Nick Moriano, Will DeWitt. We have a pretty big team. Even our producer, Lawrence, is going to go down there. So Wednesday and Thursday, follow CHGO Sports on YouTube, subscribe to us, and we're going to be doing post-practice, training camp recap shows of these joint practices. And I've never been to a joint practice before in my 20 plus years of going to training camp. These will be my first ever joint practices. And I couldn't be more excited because the battles I've always heard are legendary for joint practices. And I get to go to a new training camp facility. And that's something I also have never done. I've only ever gone to Bears training camp. So I'm excited for both, but we'll be doing live post-practice recap shows, and they're both at night. So all these Bears practices have been in the morning at House Hall, but these in Indianapolis are going to be at night. So I'm excited for the setting, but the shows are going to be a little later at night after we can get back and get set up. So make sure you tune in. Follow me on, at GBraggs Jr. 23. I'll be giving live updates of practice as I see it, and maybe I'll gas up a player, and then Dan Wiederer will get mad at me for gassing him up too hard.
Yeah, don't do it.
I just can't help myself.
Don't do it.
Meatball. So we're going to give the meatball takes, but I can promise you it's always going to come from a place of authenticity, and I'm excited to see the Chicago Bears take on the Colts 3 times. You got them Wednesday and Thursday for a joint practice, and then on Saturday for the second preseason game.
Yeah, you want to be there on the Wednesday, Thursday. Those are amazing. And the great thing, too, is that because there's really no repercussions with referees or anything, that's why it gets a little bit more heated. Because, you're not going to get thrown out of a game. There's nobody throwing a flag. There's no referee. The coaches trying to break it up.
You had a guy last year swinging a helmet on somebody at one of the joint practices. He didn't get suspended or anything for it.
No, there's nothing. There's no commissioner's report. It's kind of, I liken it going to a WWE or AEW doesn't do house shows, but like a WWE house show, like on a Saturday night that's not televised, is that the wrestlers will get loose and interact with you more, and they're not constrained to these little 2-minute buckets or 2-minute A blocks or whatever. They can really go after it and really go. And that's what happens with these practices. So I would implore anybody, if you have the ability to get to one of these practices, I don't know if they're open to the public, if they're selling tickets.
Yeah, they are, but I think tickets are sold out now.
Probably sold out. They got to be, yeah. It's too close, and I'm sure all the meatballs will be arriving in droves.
There's going to be a lot of Bears fans there, I bet.
Oh, my God. We're going to overtake that place.
That's going to be the thing I'm most looking forward to, how many Bears fans. Hey, but you mentioned wrestling. And I have a good friend, D'Lo Brown. You remember D'Lo Brown?
Yeah, D'Lo. Of course we know D'Lo, the Nation of Domination.
I don't know if you guys have ever crossed paths.
How has that not happened?
He is a die-hard Bears fan. He is as ultra passionate as you are about the Chicago Bears. He's got a great story. He's told many times with shows I've had him on. But he was introduced coming out as from Chicago, D'Lo Brown. He's actually from Philly. But he loved the Chicago Bears so much that in his wrestling career, he had them announce that he was from Chicago. And diehard Bears fan, good friend of mine somehow, some way, which is always surreal to say. But maybe one day I'll give you the proper introduction because you guys would get along splendidly.
I promise I will not ask him about The Rock. I just want to talk to. I love D'Lo. He
loves talking the stories. I was just hanging because he does Impact Wrestling, and if they're ever in your town, maybe we can get you guys connected.
Tom Hannafin has been on this show. We've had Tom Hannafin on this show, and we know Eric Young just went back to Impact. Yeah. We know, we're in. Tommy Dreamer, I'm a friend.
We're gonna get this because you guys are a match made in heaven. So we're gonna get this meetup done because I think you guys would hit it off splendidly for sure.
All right. Well, listen, I'm looking forward to all the great stuff you're going to be doing this week. I actually would start based on when this show is going to be airing. It'll be starting tomorrow, tomorrow and Thursday with the game on Saturday. We're going to be back with a recap Saturday night. And hopefully at some point we can track you down again if you don't mind coming back on with us.
It's an honor.
I don't want to twist your arm.
You are certainly not twisting my arm. I will make time
I felt
for
bad.
Adam Rank No.
I felt bad. You were so nice. Like, you're so nice about like, hey, thanks for shouting me out. Like, Jesus.
Well,
like,
because
you're there.
you literally on the same day you gave me a shout out was the same day Weeder's on his podcast for 670 Score blasting me about how I'm ruining the journalistic integrity of Chicago Bears coverage. Like, come on, we're not covering the Cold War here.
Are you kidding me?
This isn't the weapons of mass destruction. We're talking football here. Let me be a fan in the stands. You go do your thing. So when I heard that, which obviously wasn't the best, like didn't feel great to have my media friends, giving me crap, but that's fine. Hold my feet to the fire. But then I heard my good buddy Adam Rank shout me out, and that made me. That was the balance I needed that day. So that's why I gave you
and that was organic and it was authentic, and I just was like, oh, Greg's been doing a great job. But anyways, great job here tonight. We really enjoyed this. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for making the time. I want to thank everybody who has been watching the show. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to comment using the word sick. Let me know how it goes. I'm probably in the chat right now, hopefully still. I don't know. My kids have probably drawn me away. But at any point, thanks everybody for being here. We'll be back Saturday night to recap the game against the Indianapolis Colts. Look for us on social media. And until that game on Saturday, bear down. Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by Underdog Fantasy.